and there is No Perfect Movie. And in this video, I'm going to give you my top 10 list of the films that I thought were anything but perfect this year. And before we get into that, I just want to say that just like my best of the year list, I don't go out and see every major film, and I don't try to see as many films as I think are going to be bad as possible. I really do want to see films that I think could be potentially good, and I only really comment on how bad they are if they do disappoint. And plus, I don't think this was a particularly bad year for movies. A lot of people hated ones like X-Men Apocalypse or Jason Bourne, but I had a lot of fun with those. And a lot of people liked Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them and The Little Prince, and I really didn't, in all honesty. So it is pretty subjective, and I don't think this year was a particularly bad year, and even the movies on this list, they didn't really bug me that much to the point where I just flat out hate them, except for a few, and you'll know which ones in particular. So, with that said, let's get started. Number 10 is the film that I've surprisingly gotten the most amount of negative feedback on in a video, and that is The Empire of Corpses. Because, you know, God forbid an anime movie be bad, right? Let me just start off by saying that the animation is beautiful to look at, and the action scenes are fun and exciting, but the characters, with the exception of one or two, are boring and two-dimensional at best, and they make a lot of forced and stupid decisions just to advance the plot, and there are so many scenes of just two characters sitting down in a room discussing the plot and analyzing the theme's message. Things we could have figured out for ourselves if the movie let us. It's not an awful movie by any means, but it is disappointing in comparison to some of Funimation's other previous works. Emily Blunt gives one of her best performances in one of her worst films in her entire career at number 9, The Girl on the Train. Blunt does give everything she can to the performance, and Tate Taylor's deliberately unpleasant direction does portray just how alcoholic and unreliable the main character is. But the supporting characters have nothing interesting or human about them whatsoever, and when they are given some depth to be interesting, it's later on in the third act, and by then, you don't really care about these characters anymore. The nonlinear structure may have worked in the book, but here, it's just confusing and makes everything a little harder to follow. And the pacing goes by too fast to build suspense or tension, and makes it rely solely on exposition just for character motivations. Number 8 was a movie that I was a little worried about putting on this list because I have seen a lot of film fans who really appreciate this movie. And while I can understand where they're coming from, I was bored to death by Knight of Cups. I get that Terrence Malick uses a lot of montages combined with poetic narration from multiple points of view just to try and get a message across, but the reason the style doesn't really do anything for me is because the editing and the pacing goes by too fast for me to get invested in these characters or really understand what's going on in the scene, not to mention the fact that they completely erased actors like Jason Clarke and Joe Manganiello and limited the screen presence of characters who were already in the movie, like Natalie Portman, who's in it for 10 minutes, and Antonio Banderas, who I think is in it for 2 and gets like one narration for no real reason. I don't know, I couldn't really follow it, but if you did, good for you. The nicest thing I can say about number 7 is that it's one of the best-looking Scorsese fan films I've ever seen, and that is War Dogs. It pretty much has the same rise and fall true crime story of something like, say, Goodfellas or Casino. But the reason movies like those work is because the characters' hypocrisy makes them funny, or they have qualities about them that make them feel more human. Not once did I ever feel sorry for Miles Teller during the entire runtime, and Jonah Hill was so irritating that I wanted to punch him in his fat neck. The fact that he's been considered for any awards, let alone a Golden Globe, is really surprising. The story does get better as the movie progresses, but that's mostly because of how shocking the arms-dealing logistics are. The characters are thinly written, the actors are given nothing to do, and even though Todd Phillips' direction is occasionally stylish, it never elevates the substance for me. Now, when I saw the trailer for number 6, I was really excited because it had a great cast, the effects looked amazing, and the main character was so mysterious that he didn't even speak. But then 2 minutes into The Legend of Tarzan, I knew exactly what I was getting myself into. Now, I will say this, Alexander Skarsgård is the ideal choice to play Tarzan. Margot Robbie was enjoyable as Jane, and the effects on the apes were convincing in my opinion. But rather than focus on Tarzan's relationship with his ape family, what made him decide to leave Africa for England, and what made him decide to come back, we instead get a really generic story about slave labor and colonialism, filled with really bad shaky cam fight scenes, Christoph Waltz giving an underplayed and forgettable performance, and Samuel L. Jackson being a really, really awkward source of comic relief. It was just a 2-hour info dump that could have been a lot better. Now, regardless of whether you like number 5 or not, because a lot of people in the end still like this film, you gotta admit, there was no reason to get so upset over Ghostbusters. There was nothing sexist about the criticism towards the trailer of the movie, the people just didn't find it funny. And having an all-female cast is a great idea for just about anything, as long as the movie's good. And unfortunately, in this one, it wasn't. To be fair, the action scenes were a lot of fun to watch. Some of the ghosts had really inventive designs, and I do like the 4 main leads in general. I do think they're funny in real life. But Kristen Wiig and Melissa McCarthy were surprisingly safe in their humor. They never tried to be dirty, which I think was a big mistake. The majority of the jokes were either painfully obvious pop culture references or forced celebrity cameos. The villain was boring, Chris Hemsworth was ungodly annoying, and every time they tried to tribute the original Ghostbusters, it felt more disrespectful than an actual honoring. So, when they reboot something that you love, who are you gonna call? Well, nobody, just go rent the original. At number 4, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Out of the Shadows. I will admit this is slightly better than the 2014 one. The Turtles are finally the centerpiece in this film, and the arc that they're given around whether they should come out and reveal themselves to the world or stay hidden in the sewers, I thought was handled okay. But aside from that, it was just another Michael Bay movie with a different director's name on it. There were either too many computer-generated objects or too much shaky cam during the action that you really couldn't tell what was going on. Will Arnett and Tyler Perry were annoying as hell. Bebop and Rocksteady weren't used enough. Steve Amell as Casey Jones was used way too much. And the movie doesn't even understand who its audience is for. They go back from scenes that rely entirely on exposition, since apparently kids can't figure out the plot, to more dirty jokes like, say, when Bebop turns into a warthog and he looks down his jeans to see what his dick looks like. Seriously, I don't want to see Bebop staring at his bacon and eggs. And like I said in my original review, these movies really restrict themselves by only paying homage to the 80s cartoon. I grew up with the 2003 one, and most of the kids in my audience have probably only seen the 2014 one on Nickelodeon. Considering only 4 people have seen my video for number 3, I guess there's really no point in me talking about it, but I sat through Inferno anyway, so screw it. Tom Hanks, Felicity Jones, Irfan Khan, Ron Howard, they are all talented individuals, but they have nothing to work with here. The characters are so thinly written, and when they're given plot twists just to add depth to the characters, it is too late in the movie for us to even care, and because these characters were not interesting to begin with, the twists aren't even good. Ron Howard's direction and David Koepp's script feel like a bad combination of Indiana Jones and Jason Bourne, with really bad, shaky camera work and a convoluted mystery where multiple people keep double-crossing each other, and these are qualities that Indiana Jones and Jason Bourne did so much better. Inferno was a crappy book, Inferno was a crappy movie, Inferno is just crap. Number 2 was such a bad movie that I didn't even review it. I was going to, but then a friend called me and said, hey, do you want to see Neon Demon a second time? I did, and I'm glad that I did, because I could not stand Cell. The first 20 minutes of this movie are so hilariously bad with awfully written zombie attacks. One of them who has his pants down the entire time because he went to the bathroom before he got possessed. Along with really awful CG effects like, say, CG blood, or the fact that they keep inserting multiple versions of the exact same zombie over and over. Yeah, I'm surprised they didn't think we'd catch on to that. And after how hilariously bad it was, it turns into a really bad Walking Dead episode filled with characters who you don't care about, you don't know a thing about, who go from one zombie attack from the next for no real reason other than we need an action scene. Characters who go in and out who are going to die right away, and the writers know this because they don't even try to develop any of these sitting ducks. The arc about how Cusack's fictional comic book character that he created causing the epidemic makes no sense, is not looked into, and leads to an ending that, if this was a good movie, it could have been one of the best endings of the year. But considering this is one of Stephen King's least popular books, there's no point in turning it into one of his worst adaptations ever. Alright, so, I actually did do a review of number 1, and you might be thinking, how does this one top Cell if you didn't even review Cell? Well, the answer is really simple. Cell could have had a director who would have created a creepy atmosphere, could have built up suspense and tension, and could have directed actors to give riveting performances. With the plot of this film, the recycled cast and crew of previous Happy Madison collaborators, and the fact that this is the second film in Adam Sandler's 4-picture deal with Netflix, means that the do-over would have been made no matter what. Every unlikable stock character, every cheap gross-out joke, every dumb plot twist you can think of, every cheap product placement plug is in this movie and has been existing since 1990, and Adam Sandler has made it clear that he has no intent on doing anything different in his comedy movies. And you may be wondering, if you knew this going in, why did you even watch it? And here's why. One, it's completely possible that Adam Sandler can get his shit together and pull his head out of his ass anytime soon. Second, if he couldn't, the fact that we are watching these movies and going back to him and saying, this sucks, and you need to do something different. If we say this over and over and over again, you could bring a lot of influence to him and his studio. There's no guarantee, but there are examples of things like this that have worked in the past. After all the negative reception that DCEU movies have gotten after BVS and Suicide Squad, Geoff Johns is now in charge of the universe, and movies like Wonder Woman and Justice League look a lot better and look like a huge improvement. M. Night Shyamalan has spent years taking crap for big-budget genre films that he's not good at doing. So he went back to small thrillers like The Visit, and he's working his way back up. Eddie Murphy stopped doing paycheck movies like Norbit, and he made a comeback performance with Mr. Church. Even Adam Sandler has made it clear in the past that he wants to do different stuff. And I'm not just talking about Punch Drunk Love or Reign Over Me or Men, Women, and Children or The Cobbler or any of those crap. He did create a subsidiary in Happy Madison called Mr. Madison 23, a production studio that was entirely about drama films, but he only made one, and that was Reign Over Me. You know why? Because critics didn't think it was one of his best dramatic works, and the movie tanked at the box office. And that's why he shut it down, and that's why he's back to doing the exact same shit he's been making for decades. We need to prove to him that we want to see him do different stuff. We want to watch more movies like Punch Drunk Love. We wish Cobbler had a good story going for it and characters who we could root for, but it didn't. If we keep supporting his previous dramatic works, if we keep renting movies like Punch Drunk Love, if we keep downloading movies like Reign Over Me on Amazon, not downloading off of some cheap website, but on Amazon or Netflix, we can prove to Sandler that we do want to see him try other things, and if he gets the message sooner rather than later, because more and more people are supporting his previous dramatic works, maybe he might try and do that in the future. But until then, we're stuck with shit like The Do-Over. Well guys, that's my list of the top 10 worst films of 2016. What are some of yours? Be sure to leave them down in the comment section below. Be sure to like, subscribe, check out my other reviews at NoPerfectMovie.com. If you haven't seen my list of the best films of 2016, there should be an annotation up here. And once again, thank you all very much for watching. Take care.